Hello! Hopefully I'm live. I've got to wait 30 seconds for somebody to confirm it. It could be Mike or it could be anybody who's in the chat. So hello to everybody who is in the chat with us live. So many people, and we are indeed live. So hello Joe, hello Jammy. Who else have we got in here? Oh, so many. Pandemonium, hello. Big One Dreaming. I'm never quite sure how to pronounce this, but Mish D4735, hello. And so many more of you. Right, let me get to the end of the chat. Hello, Tony. Hello, Joan. Right, we're going to get on with it. People on the replay don't want to hear me say hello to everybody, but if you're with us live, then you do. Okay, we are broadcasting in 1080p. Make sure you are receiving in 1080p. There is a cog in the lower right-hand corner. It is near the like button, and I can already see we've got some likes. So thank you very much for that. We like likes and YouTube like likes. So make sure you're watching in HD. Make sure you put a like on it. And if you have no idea who I am, I'm Elaine Giles. I've been using Affinity for years and years, since the original Affinity Designer was released in beta in 2014. And I've used all of the Affinity apps every day since then. So today, what do we have? It is planner pages in Affinity. So first of all, I will go through the options you have for using planner pages, and then we will look at the creation of notes pages, different types of notes pages, some calendar pages, although we did a whole session on calendars last week. So this will be in relation to putting planners in calendars. In calendars in planners. I'll get this the right way around yet. Then we've got pages for memories. So I will include that. And then the Holy Grail, which is linking between the pages. Now, be aware, we are not covering data merge today. We are not data merging at planner pages. I will show you how to put links in. And before the question gets asked, yes, you can data merge all of that. But before you can even think of doing that, you should really understand planner pages, shouldn't you? So we will do another session on that at some point. Then I have some free assets for you. So a lot of the pages that I create today I will be providing in these free assets as PDFs, and you can have a play around with them. And then, of course, we have our infamous Q&A. So in the Q&A, make it a little bit easier for my trusted assistant here, Mike, who is going to be collating the questions, and I will be answering them at the end. So you can do that by putting a Q at the beginning, and that will just make it a little bit easier. Right, we love to read the chat. Please keep it friendly in there. And I'd like you to know I am not affiliated with Canva or Affinity. I never have been. I am a customer of both, and that's as far as it goes. So, planner pages in Affinity by Canva. Right, this is as relevant to Mac as Windows. The shortcut keys will be different between the two applications. There are a handful of differences between the application on different platforms. I will point those out as we go. So, why are you making your own planner pages? You can buy planners. Why not just use one of those? Well, none of them are going to be perfect for you. So you might want to make the perfect personal planner. Maybe you want to gift those planners. Other things you can do, you may want to sell planners. Now, you could be selling printed planners, or you could be selling digital planners. The good news is Affinity by Canva works for all three options there, whether it's just personally for you, whether you're selling digital planners, or whether you're selling printed planners. Now, there's two steps to this. You need to contemplate the creation of your planner and the consumption of your planner. Now, it could be you that's consuming it, or it could be somebody else. But before we get that far, you need to think about the creation. And you're not limited to Affinity. Obviously, when you think about apps to create it, some of you may have used other applications. We are going to focus solely on Affinity. But there is a whole range of others. I know people who have used InDesign, and obviously that's very fully featured, but also PowerPoint and Keynote, because you can change the size of the slides and use them as a canvas. But you could just as easily add links with those applications. You could even use Google Slides. I don't recommend it, but then I'm not a great fan of Google Slides. And of course, there's Canva as well. Now, Canva is different than Affinity by Canva. Canva is the online service, whereas Affinity is the app that you install locally. So once you've decided how you're creating it, then you've got to think about how it's going to be consumed. Now, it could be that you're printing it out. This tends to be less than 10% of people who are making planners, but if you are printing it out, then you will need to know what settings your print service need. And usually your print service will be very helpful with that. By far the majority of people are creating digital planners. So what's a digital planner? And it's actually really simple. It's a PDF. That's it. What makes the magic with a digital planner is that it's a PDF with hyperlinks, which means once you have it installed in your application of choice, now that is your consumption application, not Affinity, you will be able to navigate between the pages using the hyperlinks. So, what apps do you need to work with digital planners? Not create them, work with them. By far the most popular is GoodNotes. Let me know in the chat if you're with us live, what are you using? GoodNotes is probably the most popular, closely followed by Notability, although that dropped off a little bit when they went subscription. It caused one heck of an upset when they announced that. There's also other applications. ColorNote used to be free. I believe there is a charge for it now. There's also other applications including NoteShelf. And one that does actually work, but a lot of people don't even think of, is OneNote. You can make digital planners work in OneNote. There's a few compromises, but it can be done, and OneNote is completely free. Now, the very first thing you're going to need to think about if you're making a digital planner is what size are you making it? And despite the fact it's digital, a lot of people stick with what you could create if it was a physical planner. So obviously A4, there's also letter size, which is quite similar to A4. But then you've got smaller sizes all the way down to the micro planners that are A7, which are really tiny. I don't see much point in making a micro planner if it's digital. So most of the time it goes between B6 and A4, depending on your handwriting size, what options you want to provide, and what looks best in the application that you would intend your users to use. That is completely up to you. The good news is, irrespective of what size you choose, what I'll show you today are principles, and the size of the page does not matter in the slightest. The only difference will be if I'm creating a lined notes page and I'm doing it at A5, then I'm going to put in a certain number of lines. And if your page is A4, you probably want to double that because A4 is double A5. If you're making A6, you probably want to halve it. But the principles remain identical. The numbers may vary, the principles are identical. So, first thing we're going to look at is notes pages, various notes pages, and we're starting with lined notes pages. So this is what we will create. If on a slide you see Planner Assets for Affinity by Canva in the lower right-hand corner, that means there is a PDF version of this included in the assets that you can download and have a play with yourself. So let's head off and create that. So I am in Affinity. I'm in the layout view, but that will change. Usually not when I want it to. I have hidden the Canva layout, which is, where's that gone? Canva AI. I've hidden it, never use it. So if my screen looks a little bit different than yours, that's why. I've pared it down a bit. So what I'm going to do here is create a new file. Now, I'm choosing A5. Normally, I would use A4. But I'm using A5 in the demonstrations because when we come on to dots and things, we don't want to be juggling thousands of them. So I've gone for sort of a mid-range size of A5. Now, what I'm creating is full page. So when we look at the settings that we've got on the right-hand side, do I need to add things like margins and multiple pages? Well, no, actually for this one I don't. I can work with a completely blank page. But for some planner pages, you will want margins. Now, the only exception to what I'm doing, which is I won't bother with any margins, is if you're working with a visual set of discs in the middle or a spine. As I say, I will show you some of that later. I've got some examples with rings in. But for this example, I'm not concerned about the placement of the rings because the principle is the same. So I'm creating a new document, and there we go. Now you will notice straight away that has gone back to vector. I have heard a million different tales of how to keep it in layout view. It's got its own mind. It does its own thing. So before you start, make sure you're in the correct view. Now that's called a studio. And the reason that I'm using the Layout Studio, which is if you're coming from version 2, that's Publisher. If you've never used Affinity before, don't worry about the previous versions. You have, in essence, 3 applications in one app here. So Vector used to be Designer, Pixel used to be Photo, and Layout used to be Publisher. But now it's all in one application, and all you need to do is make sure that you are in the right studio, which is what these are called. Now, the studios will change automatically. Drives me mad. I would much rather have a little lock on it where I can lock it onto one of the views. But as I'm working with this today, I will choose to switch studios, and I will explain when I do why I'm doing it. But all a studio is a saved layout of tools. So while I'm in layout, my tools on the left-hand side are all related to publishing. If I switch to vector, they switch to vector tools. Now, also on my screen here, and it's hanging off, I've got 3 screens. So on my left screen, I've got some tools when I'm in layout view. And on my right-hand screen, I've got tools in layout view that are not there in other views. So you can use multiple screens. When I'm using these tools, I will bring them onto the screen. I'm starting in layout because I need a table for this. Now that might be quite surprising. We did briefly mention this last week. If I'm doing a lined page, you may think we'll start with the pen tool and click. Hold the shift key down to get it straight and click. Then press escape and now you've got a line. And all you'd need to do with that is duplicate it like this. Oh, isn't it messy? But it's all right. We can grab hold of them. We can align them with the alignment tools. Well, let's align them to the left. The spacing's not quite right, but we can even distribute vertically. And now everything's fine. Right. Now, what would we do if we wanted to change the gap between the lines? Well, you can grab a line and you can move it up. Now they don't match again, and so forth. You would have to go backwards and forwards to deal with that. Don't do that. Let's get rid of them. The best way is a table. Now, with the table tool, when you draw it out, as you pull, you get more and more cells, both in terms of rows and columns. Don't bother trying to get that right. You can fix it all later. So we want the table to cover the entire page, which means we have 5 columns and 50 rows by default. Now, this is going to be lined notes. How many columns do I need? You may think 1, but no. I've got one of these that I finished earlier, or I thought I had. I definitely have. Come on. Where are you? There we go. All right. So we'll see him later. But this is what I'm trying to create. So that is what I'm looking to create. That's actually 2 columns. So it's drawn out 5, but what I can do is I've got multiple ways that I can fix that. I'll go in there and click. So I've selected the 5, change it to 2, press enter. It will sort it out. I've now got 2. How many rows did I have? That'd be interesting, wouldn't it? I had 28, but actually that's 30. Now what I can do here is I can do the same again, click and actually type a number in, or I can click and pull up, and that will shrink down the number of rows that I actually have. So there's 30 rows. You'll notice that when I put 2 columns, it didn't resize the column, the table rather, in terms of being horizontal. The width remained the same, but when you do that vertically, it shrinks it down, just the way it works. Right, I can then select that, pull that down, and there are my rows. for my notes. Now, obviously, the margin does not need to be here. It needs to be nearer the left-hand edge. Now, once I've selected the table, and you can tell you've selected it when you have your 1 to 30 and your A and your B, you can, up here, between these two dots, look what happens as I'm hovering. I get a mouse pointer, change to arrows. If I'm near the top, the arrow's bent in the middle. If I move down, it's straight. If I move down a little bit more, it changes to a table. Move down a little bit more, and now I've got 2 arrows. This is all confusing, isn't it? Wouldn't it be nice if there's some consistency? Right, and then towards the bottom edge of that, it changes to be vertical. What's going on? Right, you need that arrow to move that column. That is the right arrow. But what do all the others do? Well, let's make it so I can see it a little bit better. And we will undo that so it's in the middle. Right, at this top edge, if I do that, it rotates it. If for whatever reason you would like a rotated table, that is one way that you can rotate it. You want to get that back, hold the Shift key down, make sure it says rotation 0, and let go. It is far too easy to inadvertently do that. So the important thing to remember is how to get it back. Right, as we move down, we know that the double-headed arrow pointing left and right, which is quite tricky to get there, a little bit easier if you lower down. But up there, we get a double one. Let's try it. There's the double one. Right. That skews the table. So again, if you probably don't want that, but if you do, that's how you can skew a table. Right, we don't want that either. What we want is to make sure that we've got a single arrowhead and pull it back to where we want that, which is about the 15mm mark, I think. Like that. And now we have a margin. Now, if we compare that to what we've got in here, we have the topic and date, and we also have our notes underneath it. Right. I did that separately for a very good reason. I will show you merging cells later, but right now, we don't really need to be thinking about that. So what I would do to make this a little bit easier and repurposable is that I would take this down so I've got a bit of a gap. And I would add a second table to act as the top of this. Again, I'm not being over concerned about the size of it because I'm going to go in and say I want that as 2. And I only need 2 here. So I can change that. And then making sure I've got this selected, pull this down. Again, I do need this to move, but because I'm putting some text in it. So I will have it match up with that. But if we look at this, we don't want the margin on it. We just want to put some text on. So actually here, when we click in it, you can see there are 4 cells, but the margins aren't at the same point. So I think this one needed to move back a bit. Maybe I had that at 10. So let's move that back and make it 10. And it's jumping. That's near enough. Right, so in here, I had topic and date. So I'm clicking in that first cell, and I'm putting in topic, and I'm clicking in the second one, and I'm putting date. Now, I didn't particularly need any margins on that at all, but my text isn't right. So what I need to do with my text is, when you're working with a table, you need to know about the table panel, which gives you access to everything you could conceivably want to do with a table. It is sectioned off into 6 sections: frame, stroke and fill, cell, rotation, vertical position, and baseline grid. The frame will apply to all of it. So if I wanted a background colour on that, I would put the fill in the frame. Now, what I actually want to do in here as I'm working with it is more to do with the individual cells themselves in terms of the stroke and fill on a cell and the size of the cell. So it's these 2 in particular that have text in that I'm concerned with. I make a selection, and in the cell section it shows me the size in terms of the width and the height and the insets. And the insets are what I need to change to make that look better. Or I could center it. So I could center the text, which gets it in the right place, but I still have a problem that it's too close to the left-hand edge. Because of that, I can use my insets. By default, there is a chain icon, and that means that the insets are linked. If I change one, it will change them all. If I change that to 1mm, it's moving it from the top, bottom, left, and right. In this circumstance, it doesn't make that much difference. If I leave that at 2, it looks absolutely fine. Sometimes it will make a difference, in which case, when you are in here, take the chain icon, break the chain, and now you can do this where you're inserting from the left and the others aren't changing. But for what we want, 2 works fine. Right, so we've got the top sorted out. At the moment, we do not need anything in terms of formatting on the left-hand edge. But we do in here need this to be slightly different. We want the margin to be red. If we look back at what we've got in here, the margin is red. Right, to do that, the easiest way is to make a selection of all the cells in column B and format the left-hand border. Now, for that, you're going to need this stroke and fill option that you have here. So let's close everything else up and focus on this. There is a right way and a wrong way to use this. Technically, there shouldn't be a wrong way, but if you do it in the wrong order, you get confused as to what's actually happening and what it's applying to. So by far the easiest way to work here is in this order, top to bottom. If you want a fill on these cells, apply it at first. The second thing, now I don't particularly want a fill on that, but we will have an example that we come on to where I will do. Right, but we don't need a fill on it, so we can ignore that. Right, the format that I want to apply is only to the left-hand edge of my selection. So in the section that says border, we have a whole range of options here. And this one is the one that we need to operate on. At the moment, the top one is selected, so it's saying the outside of my selection. But I need it to be the left side of my selection. Now, this is why you need to make the selection of where first. Because if you start saying, oh, I want this colour and I want this weight, it will be applying it to the wrong place. So first of all, tell it where to apply the changes you are about to make. So click on that and make that active. It even darkens in the interface to say this is where you're working. At the moment, it's black. I don't want it black, I want it red. So now it's red. And I could, if I want, change the weight and or style of it. So we'll make it a little bit thicker so we can see it. And as you're making that change, it actually previews it for you. And then once I've clicked away and click away again, you can see it's left everything else the same, but it has applied red to the left-hand edge of that. And there we go. Now, what I'm going to do at that point is duplicate the page. Because you may also want a range of these options. Not everybody wants the margin red. And particularly if you're designing planners for other people, you're likely to get requests of, I don't like red, can I have blue? Yes, you can indeed. So again, you make the same selection. We don't need a fill, but we do need to tell it where. And we need the left-hand edge changing. And then tell it what colour. So a bluish, deepish blue. I'm not going to change the weight of that. I'm just going to click away from there. And you can see it has changed that to blue. Now, you should be miles ahead of me if you've ever taken any of my trainings or watched any of my videos before. What if you just wanted one of these and then, or you'd made different pages, different notes pages. You've got narrow pages, you've got wide pages, and you want to change them all. Well, in that case, don't use blue, don't use red. Make a global colour. Right, a global colour is made from the swatches panel. You say add global colour. I'm just going to call that margin. Don't call it red or green or blue, because the whole point of this is what you call it is what it is. It's rather than describing the colour. You're saying use this colour, whatever colour it is, as the margin. So I think we'll go for sort of an orangey colour here, like that. So I've created a global colour. It's orange and it's called margin. And then I'm going to hit add. A global colour must live in a document palette. So it created automatically a document palette for us at the top. The palette types you have are document, application, system, and Pantone. You will not have system palettes on Windows. It's one of the things that's missing. Nothing to do with Affinity, it is just not supported at operating system level. But we're interested in our document palette. Right, so now I go back and I make my selection. This time, instead of choosing blue, I change from colour to swatches. I make sure that I have selected the correct swatches, which is my document palette. There's margin, apply margin. And now it's orange. But here's the powerful thing. Let's go back to page 1 and we'll apply orange to that as well. So we've said margin. Right, everything is now applied. So there's page 2. Let's zoom in so we can see it. Now I'm not going through this rigmarole, through the tables or anything else. I'm going to go over to my margin. I'm going to right click and edit the fill. And let's say now we want a nice green one. Like that. Not only has it changed here without me having to reapply anything, but if I go back to page 1, it's applied to page 1 as well. So this is one of the techniques. The page size doesn't matter. The size of your dots doesn't matter. What matters is the principle of how you're going to create this. So learn these techniques and everything will work much faster. So we now have a beautiful lined page. One of the things that I did on this one was, if we look at the top, although these are separate cells, there was no line here indicating kind of a margin. Whereas when we look at this one, there is. So what we would need to do with that is to select the two cells. What are we trying to impact? The left-hand edge. And it's saying, oh, that's got a black border on it of 0.2. Well, I don't want it to have any border on it. I don't need to alter the colour. I just need to go in here and say, I don't want a border on there. And now they look like merged cells. They're not merged cells, just in case you want to type in and have a gap. But you have made them look that way by taking the border away. Okay, we have a lined page. And we've done some clever things with it as well. Right, well, where is the stuff I'm looking for? There we go. Right, so that's a simple one. It's using tables, it's created lines, it's fairly simple. Do we have any questions at that stage? Because we want to sort this out before we're moving on and it gets complicated. No relevant questions yet. Okay, but I'm seeing the chat out of the corner of my eye moving like crazy. So I'll keep chatting. Right, okay. I will save that into there. That is our lined one. We don't need the sample. Oh, in fact, I'll leave the samples open. Right, but we'll close the lined one. Right, next up then. So that one is one of the ones you will find in the planner assets, and I will give you the link for those at the end. Right, the next one. The next one is a very common layout for planner pages, which is the dot grid. I know it's hard to see, but that's a dot grid. Now again, I've mentioned the size of the pages, but you can make these dot grids any size you like. The principles, yet again, are identical. It doesn't matter what size the page is, and it certainly doesn't matter what size the dot is. In fact, I'm going to teach you a way that the size of the dot, not only does it not matter, but it can be edited en masse. That's what we're going to see. So let's go make a dot grid. So again, get a new page. I will choose A5 just because of the number of dots. I did try this on an A3. Don't do that. Affinity didn't like it. It got there in the end, but it took a long time. So I'm making this A5. Again, do I need to think about margins? Well, the dots, I need to predict where the dots are going to be, but there are other ways of doing that. So I'm just going to make a completely blank page. Right, so it's there, it's A5. Notice it's taken me out of layout view yet again. So I'm going to go back to the layout. Now, you may be thinking you're going to make a table. No, I'm not going to make a table this time. So let's get the tables out of the way. One thing that is not required but might help you is if you go into your view, you have some options here for guides and a grid. If I go into the grid options, this isn't going to print or anything. It's there to help you in terms of layout. And you have some presets. So you could apply a 1 centimetre square grid. That's a little bit too much. I don't want the spacing to be 10 millimetres. So if I show you what that looks like, if you do want a grid layout at 1 centimetre, then by all means use it. But that's a little bit big for what I want. So on my page, I'm going to say 5 millimetres. And that looks much better. The dots would be placed at the intersection of these. Now, at this point, this is the one I would use a lot, but it's not a preset. But next to the presets, you have a burger menu, and within there, you can create a preset. So as well as choosing a preset, you can create a preset. So I'm going to create a preset here. We'll call this 5 millimetres. I get to choose what category I put it in. So do you want it in graph paper or any of the others? I'm not particularly concerned about this. I'll just put it there. And what we've now got, you can see 5 millimetres. That makes it easier to reuse in the future. It's not locked inside this file. It is inside your installation of Affinity. Notice in here, you can rename, you can delete, you can set it as the default. You can even manage your presets in here. This is one of the things that you may be thinking about. Once you've set them up, you should export them. And then if you move machines or you want to share them with somebody else, you can import those presets. So it's a very powerful thing that you can do in there. But all we're doing is turning on a 5 millimetre grid. As I say, it's not going to print out. It's there to help us so we know where we're putting the dot. I'm going to zoom in and do everything wrong because that's exactly what you would do. You wouldn't even know that there was a better way, but there's a better way. Right, it's a dot, so I'm going to choose the ellipse tool. I'm going to draw out, hold the shift key down, and you get a perfect circle. What size should the dot be? If it's in inches, I think it's 0.25. But I happen to know here that is 0.5. Now, down here, I've got 0.5. Now, it's because the chain wasn't locked, I need to specify that again. Once I've done that, put the lock on, and then it shouldn't change colour. Now, shouldn't change size. Now, what I'm doing at this point is I'm going to make it black just so we can see it, because otherwise it's going to be quite tricky, isn't it? Because it's very tiny. And we need to put that in place there. So that's why I bothered to create the grid, because that's where it should be. You could do it without the grid by going down here, and obviously the centre point of that is 5 millimetres. But this is not saying it's at the 5 millimetre mark, it's saying it's at 4.8. What's going on there? Well, actually, if we zoom in enough, we can actually see that 5 and 5 is there in the middle. That corner is 4.8, and it's indicating here that that is the origin it's using. If we click in the middle, now we can see that it is positioned correctly. So that's one thing you could do. So I said I'm going to do everything wrong. What did I mean? Right, well, obviously I need a page full of these. So if I hold the Option key down and I drag, there's my second one. It's not positioned right at all, but I've got snapping turned on. That is up here, and those are the snapping settings that I have, and I've enabled snapping. I can't work without snapping enabled. If snapping isn't enabled, I think it's broken. So those are the settings that I'm using, and that enables me to drag across. It's going to be a long process. Remember the size of the page. Could be here a while. But fear not, because there are a few options to help you work faster. So one thing I could do is copy and paste. and move that into place. Once I've done that, I could Command and J. That's another way to do it. And it puts that over the top of there. I move that to where I want it and Command and J again. And now it moves it relative to where it was originally and where I moved it to. And you can keep doing that. And that is one of the ways that is much faster. Command and J, Command and J, Command and J, all the way across the page. And a lot of people do that. That's not too bad as long as you've done the one line, because then you could grab the whole lot and you could Command and J and move it down from 5 to 10. That gives you another row. And then Command and J that. Oh, this is looking good, isn't it? But it's, you know what? This is still quite a lot of work. Don't do this. Don't do this. Plus the fact if it's out by 0.00001 of a millimetre, by the time you get to the end of the page, it will be completely skewed. So that's the way you may think of to do it. Don't do that. So Command and A. I will select one of these. So I've got one left. The first one. We deselect him and delete. Right. So I've still got this thing here, which is the original dot. I'm going to show you the best way to do this. It does involve a couple of techniques that you need to do at this place, at this point where you're creating this. So do this first. And you may think, what for? Because we're not actually going to use it at this stage. But trust me, it's still worth doing. There are two things in particular. Right, first thing, if I want to change the colour of these dots later, let's make it easy. Let's make another global colour. So by default, it's set to black. We will call this a dot. And I'm quite happy to leave that set to black. But I'm going to make it green first of all. And there is a reason for that. Although I've made that global colour, and this was selected when I made it, and it looked like it was right because it was black, it wasn't. It's still black. So with it selected, click the colour, and now we know for sure that that global colour is applied to our dot. Then you can go in and edit that and do whatever you want to it. So if you want to make that black again, you can do it. Now dot changes to black. That is a set it and forget it. We've changed it. It's a global colour. We can now forget that. Just ignore it. Right. The next thing to think about is what if that were a symbol? Now, you may never have heard of a symbol, particularly if you've used Publisher before, because Publisher didn't support symbols directly. Symbols were part of Designer. So I'm actually deliberately going to switch out of the Studio for layout and switch to Vector. Notice that changes my interface, and here are the symbols. Now, at the moment, that's saying circle. Now, what is it? It's a dot. So I'm going to call it dot. And at that point, I'm going to create a symbol. This is like a master copy of that. I'm not going to discuss what happens with it at the moment. Doesn't matter. Just do it. Trust me, future you will thank previous you. So I now have a symbol, which is my dot. Again, I can ignore that at this point. Let's go back to the layout and let's start working with it. Right. So we've now got this. We now need multiple copies of it. I'm going to point out that when we look at this dot now, a couple of things changed. It got a different symbol. It got a disclosure triangle at Laro to say that there's the symbol inside it. So it's changed a little bit, but that's all to our good. Right. Now, the wrong way to do it, or if not necessarily the wrong way, but the long-winded way of doing it, was what we did before, which was copy it, move it, copy it, move it. Even duplicating it, power duplicating it was taking time. There is a whole better way of doing it. So let's zoom out to the whole page. We need to fill that page with dots fairly quickly. Here's how we do it. With the dot selected, press enter. And that brings up the Move Duplicate dialog box. Now, what do I want to happen here? Well, I could do with a dot that's 5 millimeters to the right of the dot I've got. So, horizontally, put in 5 millimeters. Do I need it to move vertically? No, not at the moment. The distance is 5mm. I don't need to turn it round. It's a circle. It won't make any difference. So the angle and rotation doesn't matter. And I don't want it to get any bigger. But what I do want is to make multiple copies of it. So I put a tick in the duplicate. And at the moment, it's one copy. So here I've got one little tiny dot. Let's move this so we can see what happens. I open this up. We've got a slider. And if I move this across, you can see the dots appearing at the top. I know that I need 28 of them there. And that is the width of the page divided by 5mm. That is the fastest way to work. I've got no idea what that is there that's flashing at me. Oh, it looks like some kind of selection. Let's get rid of it. Right. So there is my row of dots. And that was one manoeuvre. Right. Now what I'm going to do is select them. Hang on a minute. There's all the dots inside it. That is not what I wanted. Okay, it's done weirdness. Let me sort that out. Okay, I will do it again just for good measure. Press enter. Need to move it 5, and I need duplicates, and I needed, wasn't it, 28 of them? Right, okay, that better? That's better. Right, I needed them separate. I need separate little dots. So there's all the dots. Grab those, and I can group those together because that is a row of dots. So let's make that a row. Guess what I can do now? Exactly the same, which is press enter. This time I don't want them moving horizontally, I want them moving vertically. So I'll put in 5mm vertically, and I need to duplicate it. How many copies do I need? I think from memory it was 40, but let's check. Let's head off down the bottom, and it was 40. So 40 rows, and click OK. Now I've got 40 entries in my layers. I'm going to select them, and I'm going to group them. And that is my dot grid. So if I wanted to put any branding or anything else on it, I can do that, but my dot grid is safe in there. There is my dot grid. Right. Now, let's go back and have a look why we bothered with the global colour and why we bothered with the symbol. Well, you know how a global colour works. Without touching anything else, edit the fill on your global colour, and as you apply it, you're totally ignoring me. Why are you doing that? Do not do that. Okay, I think what happened was, when I undid, because I wanted them separate, it looks like I didn't apply it, but that's fine. We can fix that. There's one of the dots. Let's apply the global colour to it, and it updated them all. So that's what should have happened. So you would go in, you would edit this. Let's make it orange again. Nice orange there, like that. And because we had a global colour, it will update everything. That is point 1, which is great by itself. But, and if you've ever done this professionally like me, you'll then get somebody saying, well, you know those dots, they needed to be square. Did they really? Yeah, you could have told me that at the beginning. But that's fine, because we did it right. So let's zoom in so we can see a few of these and switch back to Vector Studio. Here is our dot. That is one instance of our dot. So in our layers, as I've double clicked to drill down, there is one instance of our dot, which is a symbol. And this is why you bother creating a symbol. As I open that up, there is my dot. So in here, if I make changes to my dot, well, let's make the dot much bigger. Oh, it changes them all. It changes all of the dots. Obviously, I can then put that back in the middle, and away we go. That isn't actually what I want, though, because they've come to me and said, it should be square. Or even worse, it should be a cross. Should it really? Right. This is how we deal with that. Right. In our shapes in here, we actually have shapes which are crosses or hearts or anything else. What I'm going to do is make this by hand. So I am going in here to get the rounded rectangle tool. Now, the trick to make this work is making sure that you are inside your symbol and you have selected the dot shape. And any changes you make now, you're making inside of the symbol. So I'm going to draw there part of my cross. Notice it's updated them all. Wow. Right, I want that to be the same size as that though, so I'll shrink it down a little bit. Now, in here, we've got two elements. We've got this and we've got the dot. We don't need the dot, so we can actually delete the dot. And now, to get the other half of that, I'm going to duplicate it, Command and J, and rotate it 45 degrees. And now, the dots are little crosses. We can even edit those. So if we wanted them a bit smaller, we don't want them that small though, do we? That'll do. Right, and then place that so the centre of everything is over the top of there. That needs to be 0.4. Move that into place. And what you're doing to one, you're doing to them all. So a symbol lets you change the actual shape. In this case, we actually deleted the dot. And we made a completely new shape. You could, if you wanted to take that a little bit further, take these and merge them together, make them into a compound shape. You can scale them as well because they're looking mighty big. So I'll scale that down so it's 0.8 and then move that into place. So make it so I can see where the centre of that should be and put it in place. So the two tricks there that, you know, I would think at the beginning, if you're anything like me, you're like, I'll just test this, see if it works. No, stop. Take the time and do it properly because then you don't have to undo any work. You can actually move forward by editing what you've already created. So take the time and make a global colour and take the time and make a symbol because it takes literally seconds. And if you never need to think of it as a symbol again, that's fine. It'll just sit there and be a symbol. But if you ever need to make changes, it's much, much, much faster. So we now have a dot grid. Any questions on that at the moment?
Yes.
Right.
Renee says, with the move stroke copy command, isn't it possible to do both rows and columns in one go?
You could do, but I'm showing the principle, so I'm showing it twice.
Okay, the others are more generic, so I guess they can wait till the end.
Okay, we will come back to those. Right, so we now have our dot grid. Let's save our dot grid. And let's head off into the next one. So that one is available inside those assets. And now let's look at the Cornell notes. This is variation on a theme in terms of it's lined notes, but it's a very specific layout. So this was created, I think it was in the 50s. The name obviously gives away the location, Cornell. And it's a way to make notes that's structured. So you have the date, the subject, teacher if you want, and the title at the top. And then you have three distinct areas. Your main notes go in the middle, in the yellow bit. You then do a page summary in the pink bit. If you have any questions as you're working, they go in the green bit. But what's the best way to create that? Well, it's a variation on the lined thing. And I have put that page with the colours in the assets. So let's have a look at that. Right, again, I'm going to make this A5. And again, we are going to make sure we're in layout view and use another table. Now, you've got options with this depending on what you want. I will show you the most flexible. At the top, you could elect to keep that separate. So we need 2 rows and we need 2 columns as well. But we will need to move where that is. Right, but we can do that. So, making sure you're in the right place, we can do that. Or did we need 4? Let me have a look at it. It'll be in here, I think. Where's our samples? Oh, I didn't put that in there. Silly me. Right, let's have a look at it. There's the finished thing. 4. There you go. Just a bit bigger. All right. So we need that a little bit bigger. How big you want that will depend on the handwriting that you're using, if it's digital, and even if it's not. Right, let's do that. Okay. Right, so let's lose some of these. We don't need the dot grid now, do we? Right, so Cornell is going in here. So we had date, teacher, subject, title. So let's get subject in there and title in there. And where are we? Date. And I think that was topic, wasn't it? Oh, it was teacher. Right. Tell it's a long time since I was at school. Right, obviously they're in the wrong place. They are too close to the top and too close to the left. But that's when we bring our table panel back and we open up the cell settings and we put in some insets to get them in the right place. Another option you've got with that is you could centre that vertically as well. But you're putting the inset in just to move it in a little bit from the left. Right, so that's the top bit done. You could have done one table for this. The reason that I'm not doing that, one, is better practice, but two, it enables you to change these independently. So your decision now with the rest of it is, do you use one table or do you use two? We'll go for one first of all. So we're putting a table in here that fills the rest of it. We probably have far too many lines in there. So let's try about 28 and see what that looks like in terms of layout. So take that up to there. That's probably not bad at all. Now, think about what we had. We had this over here, which is the Q questions. This is your notes area, and this is your summary area. So at the bottom, we had 7 rows for that. But we didn't have it looking like that. So first of all, we will need to shrink this down. So we don't need 5. We need 2 there. We had this matching the top table. So making sure you've got the right thing or you'll skew it. So let's put it there like that. That's off fractionally. Only a bit, but it all counts. I would probably type this in to get it precise. But it's a demo. So you're not going to do that for me, are you? Come on. Far easier to type in the size. It's twanging, but there we go. That matches. Right. Now, in terms of colouring it in these areas, you need to think about the bottom half first. We had 7 in our sample, and it looked different. So let's do a comparison. It looked different. These are okay, and these are okay. These are cells, but these down here, they are in the same table. We can tell that because the rows are lit up with numbers and our letters across the top. But definitely these bottom cells are different. So what we've done with the bottom cells, not only have I'm going to put a fill on it, so we'll not greys. Let's go for a pinky colour. Just not quite that pink. Let's go for that. Right, that's the area, but we only want single rows here. So if you select the cells and right click, you can say merge. And now you've got a single cell where previously you had 2. So I'm going to go through those and merge them. Like that. So that's the bottom taken care of. And the only other thing that we actually need to do in here is make a selection of the cells. And then in our table panel, use the fill option. I think that was lemon of some description. Like that. And what was the other colour we had? Green. So make a selection there, apply the fill, make it green, and take it down so it's not quite so in your face. And I think the top half we had blue. So make sure you've selected that. And in there, go for a pale blue. And you now have Cornell notes. There would be another way of doing that, which is you could separate off these 7 cells at the bottom and put them in another table. That would make it easier for you to change the line height of the summary at the bottom. You could do it anyway, but the way it is in one table, if you want to change these, you can do, but that's going to resize the table. So by far the easiest way, if you want the bottom half to be able to have the height of the lines different than the main area, is a separate table, which, if you look, was what I did at the top. They are slightly different than the rest. They are a little bit deeper. So when you're making a decision between one table or multiple tables, just think about future you and how you would need to edit it and what would make it easier to edit in the future. You can get really clever with tables and make the whole of that in one table. You could make something 10 times as complicated and put it in one table. And there will be a great sense of achievement having done it. But then you need to think about, and what happens when I need to edit it? And if it's going to take 10 times longer to edit, then that's not an improved way of working, is it? So think about editing it in the future that would be needed. Okay, so what we got coming up next? I think we've got another one. So let's save that. That's Cornell. And we can get rid of that. And we can get rid of that. Right, let's head off into here. So again, that one is available for you to have a play with. You could transfer that to your notes app of choice and actually test it. That would tell you whether you need those lines, more space, less space, whatever you need to do with them. Right, the next one I'm going to look at is grids. And the difference between this and a dot grid is that this is a grid that actually appears on the page. With the dot grid, yes, we created a grid, but we didn't actually have that grid showing on the page. We only had the dots themselves that we then made multiple shapes. So I've included that one as well. Let's go and have a look at that one. All the same principle, to be honest. It's just how you actually think about it. So I'm going to go in here and make it A5 again. Do I need margins? That depends. I remember having graph paper at school that went right to the edges. I also had graph paper that had like a margin in it. So you could do that either way. I'll do this full page though. Yet again, it switched me to vector view, which means that my table tool has vanished. Do you know, sometimes it'd be easier just to add the table tool back to vector view and be done with it. But let's go back to layout and make sure that we have the table, and let's put that in there. Now, we bothered to create a grid, if you remember. So if we go back up here and we look at our grids and axes in there, we saved it as a preset. So there's our 5mm, and we want to see it and close it. And you can see that just about behind it. We're not using it other than a reference to make sure that everything is correct. Now we've got 50 rows here. How many rows do we need? I think we had 40, didn't we? So let's grab that and make 40 and pull it down. And if that's correct, no, that doesn't look correct, does it? It's going out slightly, or is it? I don't think it is, you know. Right, let's have a look at that. And that is 5.3, and it shouldn't be 5.3. So I think the issue here is we're going to have extra at the bottom. But what we can do to make sure that this is right, we can grab all of these, and it's telling us that the height of each row is 5.3. Let's make it 5 and press enter. And that will solve the problem. So now they are correct in terms of rows. We're just one row short, potentially 2. So what I'll do there is add 2 more, and that fills it nicely. And they have been added at 5mm. So that's so far so good. Right, then we need to think about the number of rows. Well, the good thing here is we can just keep adding them. Don't even need to bother counting. Let's look in here. We can just keep adding them until they all marry up with the grid behind it. Which should be, maybe that was where 40 came in. No, that's too many, isn't it? Let's take it back a bit. 34-ish? No, I don't think it is. Right, but what we can do is, let's grab all of these. Oh, you're making it difficult for me. Change that back to 20. That should be easier for me to grab them. Right, got them. Right, notice, height is 5. If we change the width to 5, that will marry up with our grid. And then what we can do is add them. So not take them away, add them. Now notice what's happening. This is so annoying. In fact, I've got problems with it not working properly either. Right, let's try that again. It's not widening the actual table itself. It's adding them, but it's not widening the whole thing itself. It's very annoying, isn't it? They're 4.9. We are so close. Let's add one more and then make sure that all of these, so Command and A, make sure all of these are 5. 5 by 5, that will deal with it. And what we can then do is get rid of the one at the end that we don't need. So we've got a half on that that I would leave there, but then I would crop it off. So I will show you when you have a situation like that, irrespective of how much you have hanging off the page, we zoom in, you're going to need this one hanging off the page. You don't need that one, but it doesn't matter. Right, this one here, you can deal with that by doing what's called a vector crop. So in our vector tools, we have a crop tool, which I have on a shortcut key, is this one down here. And what that enables me to do is crop the table to fit the page. Once I do that, it looks like it's disappeared. If I select it, you can see it's still there, but it's not showing on the page. And there you have your grid. So to get this precise, it's always good to make sure that you're in the layout view and check the cell sizes in here. And now you have a grid. Now, obviously with this, I've done in other demonstrations, things like global colours, and I didn't in here. But it might be an idea to make sure that you've selected the entire table. And on the cells at the moment, all of them, they have this colour. But if we were to make a global colour, so let's make an orangey global colour like that. And we'll call that grid and add it. Right, we could apply that in here. So first of all, same principle, what are you applying it to? And it needs to be everything, which is that one. Then what colour do you want it? Well, I want it to be our grid colour, and I'll have it at 0.2. And now, if you need to change that, you go in here and you edit the fill. So if you want to make that green, dark green, or a blue colour, blue like that, you can do that. So always think first, global colour, can anything be a symbol? And then start designing it. Don't think about that afterwards. And it is very tempting to think about it afterwards. Okay, that is our grid page. Let's head off into there. So that again is one of the ones that's in the assets. Let's do something a little bit reminiscent of last week, but not quite. Right, so calendars. This is slightly different than last week because the calendars are going to fit onto a page. So now we're thinking of calendars in terms of layout on a page. But I'm showing a technique that I did mention last week, just purely to show you how fast you could create an annual page, so a vertical monthly planner for 12 months. So let's go and have a look at that. So I will make this, I think I made this A4. Possibly for the size, but we'll do that anyway. Right, so what I'm doing with this is, for my layout purposes, I probably will have to think about a margin for this one. This isn't something I want to push to the end. If you didn't set the margin up at the beginning, that's fine. Make sure you have nothing selected and click on your document setup. And in here, you can then go and change it for what you need. So in at the margins, I'm going to put 10 all the way around. You may need that to be different because you may be putting page numbers at the bottom. You may be putting branding at the bottom. If you do, then break the link on the chain and change one element. Now, it could be the bottom, but also in this layout, it could be the left because you could be trying to accommodate the planner rings in the middle. For what I'm doing, it doesn't matter at all. So I'm going to make that 10 because I am showing principle. Right, now I've got my margins and I can work to that. But I need something a little bit more than that because I'm going to put 3 months on a page. And I don't want to be guessing what size they need to be. So in the view options, you have guides. Now these include your horizontal and your vertical guides, which you could create yourself. If you've never created a guide before, let me show you. You just drag one on from the ruler, drag one on from the ruler. And now, if you were creating something like you've got a shape like that, as you move that towards the guides, make sure you've got your snapping on, which I have up here. And that means you can snap content to the guides. Snapping at the top, it's snapping at the bottom, snap at the left or the right. Those are the guides that we're talking about in there. If I were to double click on a guide, it opens up my guides dialog box. You can see I've got my horizontal guides and my vertical guides. I don't need those guides at the moment, so I can bin them from there. You select and delete. Those are ad hoc guides. You use them as and when you need them to align something. But I'm talking about column guides. I need 3 calendars on this layout, so I'm choosing 3 columns. I do not need the gap between them to be anything like that big. So let's try 5 and see what that looks like. That looks fine. So also in here, you can see whether they're styled, what colour they are. You can access your margins. You can even change the colour of your margins. That's everything that you've got in this guides dialog. I'm just doing that so I can see that this is the size, the width I'm going to create for my calendar. Again, it has taken me into the Vector Studio. Let's go back to the Layout Studio because I'm going to create it with a table. Now I've got my guides to work to. I'm going to drag down like that. Again, don't worry about getting this right at the get-go because you won't. So let's change it from 1 to 2. Obviously, we've got far too many days in here. We're going to need 32, not 31, because we want to put a heading at the top. So we need 32 rows in there. Right, this is going to be our month at the top. I could put January, but I'm going to put month. Style that as you will. So I personally will be thinking about using styles. Your mileage may vary. But I'm going to put month in there and I'm going to align it to the centre, both horizontally and vertically. There is my month. I now, with that cell, need to put a fill in that cell because this is my heading. Again, it would make sense if that was a global colour. For demonstration purposes, I don't always bother to make global colours or we'd be here all day. But I will make a global colour for this one. I think I had it sort of orangey colour. Something like that. Right. So let's call that month heading. We'll call it month heading. Call it what it is, not the colour. Right. And then that needs to be applied as the fill. So put that in there. I think if I'm going to do that, and that is the month heading, it's a bit on the dark side. Let's lighten it up a bit, and that'll mean I don't have to edit the font. There we go, like that. So we got our month. Now in here, all of these cells need to have the same style. So again, I would bother making a style, but for the moment I won't. Right, that's the text aligned. So this would be day 1 and this would be day 2 and so forth. Don't do that. Be there forever. What I will do with that is select them. And in our paragraph panel, we have all of these sections to work with, and one of them is bullets and numbering. And if I choose a list from in here, I've got my 1, 2, 3, 4, or I could use 0, 1, 0, 2, and that would pad it out nicely. I'll go for that one. And that puts numbers in. It's not particularly aesthetically pleasing at the moment because if we zoom in, let's have a look what we've got. It's far too close to the left-hand edge and it has a full stop after it. Now, you may want the full stop after it. I don't really want the full stop after it because I'm going to show you something. So in the text options in your paragraph panel, if you take out the tab and take out the full stop just by delete, Remember to press enter. If you don't press enter, it doesn't stick. Right, we've now got the days. They are too close to the left-hand edge, but that's fine. We have insets in here. So if I move that, one should actually do, but if you want to line it up, you could do two. Right, what you need to think about at that point is you can format these days, but you can't select them. If I go into any of these and I try to select them, I can't select them because they're actually a numbered list. You can still format it, however, if you need to. So to do that, you make sure you have it selected. You've got your settings over here, and in your style, you can create a new style, or you can use what you have, like bold, and that will apply that style to it. So let's say that that's the style that we want. That is fantastic in terms of you're now ready to create the other months. You could make it the symbol. For speed, I'm not going to bother, but I will show you that I will drag and drop for February. I will drag and drop for March. Now all I need to do is start in here naming these. So that would be January and February and so forth. That didn't take the style with it. Why didn't you take the style with it? Come on, did I do something weird? I'm sure it wasn't me. I probably went to spell it wrong and that took it the wrong side of that. Right, let's undo then. Have it your way. Right. Don't misspell it or you lose the style. That's why it's better if it's actually a text style. Right, there we have February, March. And January, February, March. Right, obviously 28 days in February. We need to think about that. Don't do that yet, because we're trying to do this the fastest way possible. Make sure you've selected all three and copy. Now, to get rid of the extra ones, you click next to the first one you want to delete and you press enter. You move down to the next one, enter, and they disappear. Right, that was why I copied them, because I'm going to create 3 extra pages and I am going to paste in there January, February, March, and so forth. So let's paste them all in. Now I need to go through them, and obviously on here that will be April and May and June. Then you need to calculate what's got what dates. Don't make a fool out of yourself now. Right, April's only got 30 from memory, and so has June. So I'm pressing enter to get rid of those, which takes me to the quarter 3, which is July, August, and September. I'm frantically now trying to count these. September's got 30 days, hasn't it? Right, so let's get rid of that one. And the last one, and you're good to go. So this is how fast you can create a 12-month calendar. So November and December. Now, the wrong way to do it would have been up here to sort February out and then try adding things. Because once you've taken the numbered list out of it, you would have to go through over here and apply that. So create one that's got all the days in it and then whip through it. So in here, that one wouldn't be there, but everything else looks fine. I think we're done. There we go. So we have a 12-month planner. Now, obviously, I've done these as individual pages. You may be working with spreads if you're doing a digital planner. But it's very simple to sort that out if you wanted to do that. So to do something like that, make sure you've got nothing selected. Go to your document setup. And in here, make them facing pages, but don't start on the right, start on the left. And that will mean you have January through to June and July through to December. What I was talking about in relation to your planner rings is that you may need to widen the centre here to accommodate your planner rings. But I have an example of that coming up. So there we go. That is your vertical planner. So we will call that planner. And how do we save that one? Let's move on. Right, so again, that is available in the assets for you to work with. And monthly pages. Now, monthly pages could be a nightmare. They don't actually have to be. And what I would suggest is that you take the time and make generic months that you can then drag and drop on. So what I did with that was very simple. New page. I'll make it A5. And in my layouts, I created some assets. So I prefer a Monday start. I have created calendars for the whole of 2026. And if I wanted a month for January, I'm dragging and dropping it on. Now, you might think, oh, yes, but it doesn't fit. No, it doesn't fit. But these are, as assets, incredibly useful. So one thing I'm going to do in my document setup is make sure that I've got some margins. 5mm is enough. It's only A5. It doesn't matter when you've taken the time and with a table made these, what size it is. Because this could be a mini calendar. It could be a full page calendar. It doesn't matter. Now, you're looking at that and thinking, yes, but it's not pretty, is it? No, it's not. But it can very quickly be made much prettier. So I've selected the first 2 rows. I'm dragging those up, make them smaller. Obviously, that has had an impact on a row 3. But hold the Shift key down and select all of the others. Right click and evenly distribute rows. Right, now we've got a nice header and we've got the day headers. Obviously, it looks silly that these are so small and in the centre. If this was just something you wanted huge, then what you can do in here is change the size of these and make them much bigger. What I want to do with them, though, is move them. So at the moment, they're centred, but we can move them to the right, the left, centre, right, left, with just these options. You can centre them or bottom align them or top align them. So let's have them at the top. Obviously, though, then they're far too close to the corner, but you should know right now what the next thing is going to be. And I don't want them fully justified, do I? No, put them on the left. Right, what I'm going to do in there is add an inset. So again, I can just add 2mm to that and it lays it out beautifully. What I can then do is format that in any way I would like. So if I want this to be a different font, I can do that. If I want these background colours all sorted out. And there is my month. And if I am working with planner rings, all I need to do is move that in to accommodate that. So don't think everything has to be recreated from scratch just because it's a different size. It doesn't matter. We will visit this calendar again in a different layout where it's a mini calendar. And a very clever mini calendar at that, trust me. Right, what we got next? Vertical weekly. So let me save that. I'm not bothering with names at the minute. Let's go back in here. So that one is also available for you to have a play with. Take it to your digital planner and draw all over it. Right. I think I need to head in and just show you this one. I don't think I put it on a slide. Right. I have got here, or have I? Let me have a look. Yes, I've done that one. I have. And I've done that one as well, which takes me to that one. Did I not put that in? Never mind. Let's open it up and have a look at it anyway. Right. You may want to have a spread like this, which does accommodate rings in the middle, as you can see. But what you want to do is have the user, maybe this is something that you're printing out, or digital, where they are dating the pages. And what you need, so I'll toggle that off so you can see the preview. At the moment, all I've done is put the notes column and, oh look, there's the mini calendar, formatted differently, but other than that, it's the same mini calendar. That's all I've done. What I need to do with this is now create the rest of the layout. Right, the rest of the layout is utilising 4 columns because we need 7 days. I've also used guides here to indicate to myself where the split needs to be. So this is morning, afternoon, evening, and little notes at the bottom. How do I do that effectively? A lot of people I see do this by dragging shapes on. Don't do that. So what I mean when I say dragging shapes on, oh, look, there's my header. So we'll put that in it, and I can duplicate that down here, and I can duplicate that, and then have another one of these representing the next bit. So put that there. Don't do that. You'll be there forever. Don't do that. You know what my answer to this is going to be, don't you? Make sure you're in the layout studio and go and get a table. We will put it in the right place. In fact, no, we won't put it in the right place. We'll put it in the right place shortly because we might need that. So I'm drawing that in there. I've got one column. That's fine. I definitely don't need 60 odd rows. How many rows do I need? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So let's take that up to 7 and let's get to work with it. Right, let's stretch it down. Obviously, these are not right, but you can hold the Shift key down and pull this back up so it is correct. Notice it twangs to the guides. So this one here is going up to there. Not quite twanging at that point. What are you doing? Where are you? I think I've taken you too far. Do you need to be there? Is that right? Have a look at that. That is indeed right. So the closer you get to this by zooming in, you will find that these are easier to move and twang to things. So that one needs to snap to that. And then we have the final one that snaps to that. Right, let's have a look at that. They are all laid out perfectly. Now what you do is say, these are headings. So I'm holding the Command key down, which would be Control on Windows, and I'm selecting the 3 heading blocks. And now I'm going to apply a fill to them. So from in here, I have a palette. You should instantly know by glancing at that it's a document palette. It's not called document, but these are global colours because they have the tiny white triangle in the lower left. And these are the headings and accents that go in there. So I have now applied that to there. Right, this one, so 2, 4 and 6, I will apply this to, and I have table background. So again, it's not the colour, it's what it does. And this one is the footer of the table. So go into there and I have table footer. And now I have a table that is representative of a single day. But if you were looking at this, if you were online and looking at pictures of pretty planners, they've got rounded corners. But this is a table. Now you could round a corner if you'd done it the long-winded way. So if I had put that up here, and I then wanted to round that corner, I could do that. I should have done it the right way, which is don't use the square, the rectangle. Use one with a rounded corner already. And then you can round the corners to your heart's content. But that's the wrong way to do it because you'd still have to do it multiple times. Right, so we'll get rid of that one and we'll concentrate on this one. Could you round the corner of that retrospectively? Yes, you can. You go to the vector tools. You actually have here the corner tool. And you can round the corners like that. Still not the right way to do it, but just so you know that you can. Right, let's get rid of that. Let's do it the easy way. Right, what we want to do is round the 4 corners of the table. Be aware, the corner tool does not work on a table, so you can forget that. But what you can do here is use a rounded rectangle, and I am drawing it next to that. That is far too much, but you can change the rounding on this. So that's about right. Now I know what you're thinking. Yes, but that's a shape and that's the table. But if I put that over the top of there and I make it the right size, which is the width of the column, like that, that is my mask. So if I go in here, it's saying rounded rectangle. But actually, if I say what that is, which is a daily mask, and I take my table and I put it inside there, it rounds the corners. It masks it off and rounds the corners. Like that. Now, at that point, looking good. Let's put that in the right place. You could at this stage duplicate it. Should you duplicate it? Well, you know you've used global colours, so that's absolutely fine. If you change the colours, it will change all of them. So you could say yes. But what I would do at this stage, and you will see from this that I already have, we go into vector mode and we look at the symbols. You can see I've got a day symbol here. But this is called day mask. I'll call it masked so I know it's the masked version. With that selected, create a symbol. And then you've got two options. You can either duplicate it at that point, or you can drag a new one on from here. That is another way of doing it. So what I would do is that. And I could even grab all three of these and make a copy of those over there, and then grab the final one like that. So what was the point in doing all of that? Well, global colour-wise, let's say we think this blue is a little bit on the dark side. We will go up here to our schooner blue, which happens to be a palette that is a document palette. And there is our heading and accent. And we'll lighten it up a bit. Like that. Are you lightening up a bit? What are you doing? I definitely used you, and you're not lightening up. What is happening? Right, let's go in here and have a look. See what is happening with that. I definitely did that right. I know I did. But I'm selecting them again, just to be on the safe side. I definitely used that. I think it's got a problem with that. It's doing naughty things. But there you go. It works anyway. It wouldn't have worked if I hadn't have made the symbol, which is another reason why it's always worth making the symbol. So just to be absolutely certain we've got the right... You see, that is formatted correctly. Right, let's make that pink here, like that. And it updates all of them. That's the whole point, that it updates all of them. Now, that was changing the colours. Was it worth bothering creating the symbol? Well, for two reasons, yes, it was. One, if the global colour's acting up, which you saw it was, then having it as a symbol will automatically update all the colours, irrespective of whether it's global or not. The second reason, let's say that people come back to me and say, I need more notes at the bottom. So basically, they got a problem in here. So let's get into that. All the way down to the table, that this bit at the bottom, they would prefer it to be bigger. That in the evening, they've got fewer appointments, they just want those notes to be bigger. So if I hover over there, this is one instance, I hold the shift key down, I drag it up, it drags up on all of them. And that is why you take the time and you make the symbol. Okay. Let's make sure we've got a copy of that. So we'll do a save as on that one. And like that. Right. I think I can go back into here now, because my next one is... No, I'm lying. That's disappeared as well. Where's things gone? Crying out loud. Right, never mind. Right, I'm going to come in and I will show you what we're going to create, and then we'll do it. In some planners, you will see that people have memory boards. So there is a memory board. Let me do that so we can see it all. There is an image in the background, and then I've created some Polaroids on it. Obviously, you would need to be thinking about leaving space on the left-hand side for your rings, but it's very, very simple to create that. So let's go and have a look at that. So we'll make it A5. And first of all, you're going to need a corkboard image. So I have a corkboard image, which I could drag and drop on it. And then I could start playing around trying to scale it. Or I could do it the right way. So let's go to the layout, and this time get one of our tools here, which is the picture frame, and draw out a frame to put that in. No tables this time, you'll be glad to know. Let's try and get that out of the way. I'd be far too precise with that. This time when I drag and drop the corkboard in, it will fill it. And I can then decide if I want a bigger pattern or a smaller pattern. But by putting the picture frame on first, I've done that. I would then lock that because I don't need to be clicking on that and making any changes to it. Right, I then had an image that I put in, so let's drag and drop that, which was the top, which I had somewhere like that, and I put like just some text on it that said memories. So let's put that in. And obviously that would look better if the font was something handwritten like Stingray. And make it a bit bigger. Rotate it to match that, and I would make that a kind of blue colour, but let's leave it, not got time. Right, next thing, how do you get that Polaroid on there? Well, you've got a few options. If you go to your stock and you put vector and you type in Polaroid, you will get some options in here, and you could use one of these as a starting point, but you don't need to. So you might think, oh yeah, that looks okay, but it's a bit clip artish when you get it on there, and it doesn't really look real. These are very, very easy to create. Come on. Right. So rather than use something like that, what I would do in here is go and get a shape like that. That looks like the back of a Polaroid, doesn't it? Right, that is indeed the back of the Polaroid. Right, next thing I'm going to do, draw out another one. And I'm going to make that a totally different colour so I can position it and scale it correctly. So let's get it positioned on there. That would probably be better if it was 70. And maybe a little bit taller, like that. You could even have it as an old photo like that, but Polaroids tend to have that bit at the bottom, don't they, where you can type. Right, so let's square those up like that. And we're almost ready to go. Right, what I would then do with this is put a photo in it. So before I do anything else with that, I will right-click it and convert it to be a picture frame. So now it's ready and waiting for a photo to be dropped in it. But if I do that, it's just going to look like a photograph sat on a white background. There's a couple of things I could do with making this look more realistic. So on the white good grief, rectangle, on the white rectangle, I am going to put on there an effect, and I'm going to put a shadow on it, a drop shadow, which should make it lift off the page a bit like that. So let's have a look at that. Now it looks like it's lifted off the page. This one needs to have an effect, but a different effect. There's no point having an outer shadow on it because that would separate it from its background. But what I could do with that is put an inner shadow on it. So put a tick in inner shadow. And as I bring this up, you can see what's happening. And that makes it, or will make it look, when I add the image, more realistic, that at the edges of it, it's got what is in effect a drop shadow, but on the inside. So let's do that. Right. But remember, this is a picture frame. So let's go back to our stock. We don't want vector this time. We want standard stock. And we're looking for a very cute Samoyed. So let's go and get a cute Samoyed. Where's the one that is the spit image of my boy? One of these, I think, as a pop. Right, let's drag and drop that on there. It's quite a big image. So if you look at the pixels here, it's quite big. And then just position it in place. The only other thing I did, so just to show you what the impact was of putting that drop shadow on the inside, the inner shadow, if we turn that off, it looks like it's just sat on top of it. With it turned on, it looks like it's part of the image itself. And the only other thing it needed, we can take a copy of that and put that on there, moving it to the top. And how old's that dog? Probably about 8 weeks, looking at it. Right, so 8 weeks, make it a little bit smaller. Grab all of it. Come on. Oh no, we definitely need more than that. Right, like that. Put it in the middle. And the last thing to do, because you would probably be putting 2 or 3 on here, is to make sure that you have the background, the picture, and the text, and group them together. and that is your Polaroid. I would also take the text and the note at the top and group those together as well. And once you've done one and you've got it in place, so this is now movable, and rotating it because it's a group gets it like that. Once you're in place, lock them in place. And then continue, rinse and repeat for the second one and the third one. Right, so memories. If I could spell, I would be dangerous. Right, now, hopefully this time I've definitely got a slide. I definitely have, I know I have. Right, because this is the advanced one. This is the one you're going to want to see. Right, if you're making a digital planner, you are going to want to have the ability that somebody can tap on a date and it go to a daily page. To do that, you need to know about anchors and hyperlinks. And as I said at the beginning, yes, that can be data merged. No, that is not what we're doing today. We're learning the principles today, which is adding an anchor and adding a hyperlink. An anchor is a destination in your document. So you are saying, I want this text or this page or this image to be a destination that somebody can get to from another page. Hyperlinks are pointers to those destinations in your document. And the file that I have ready and waiting to do that is this one, which does have the planner rings in the middle. And what we want to happen is the mini calendar in the lower right will navigate us through the 31 days of January. That is what we're aiming for. So let's have a look at that. Right, so we need in here to have a new file. No, we don't. We need to open up the other one, don't we? Right, let me have a look. It is in there. I don't want the PDF version. I want the editable version. There we go. So what I have in here are the 31 days of January. And I have my mini calendar down here. Now, most of the content of this page is coming from the master. There is a master page in here, and that's important. If I just toggle off that master, you can see how much of the content is coming from the master. The only content that's on all of these pages that is not coming from the master is the actual date. Right, but it's the date that we need to work with. So, most people think, oh, let's get a hyperlink in. Let's put the hyperlink in. Get in there. That's not a bad way to start, but not perfect. So make sure that you are in layout view. Make sure you can see your pages. And you are going to need two panels. And these are the panels. The anchor panel and the hyperlinks panel. What I do is open up the anchors panel and then open up the hyperlinks panel and drag them together. So normally they'd open separate and I just drag them so they're together, because I'm never going to be working with anchors and hyperlinks at exactly the same moment, and I want to be able to have them close enough together that I can switch between them. Right, so let's sort this out. Well, first of all, you need an anchor, and then you need to link to it. So this up here is the date, so I'm going to select the date. It would make sense to have that as the destination that you want to appear when somebody taps on the mini calendar at the bottom, or uses a pencil on the mini calendar, or clicks on it, depending on how they're using it. So make sure you are on the standard page with the date, and then in the anchors panel, you click plus at the bottom. What it will do is show you this insert anchors dialog box, and it will take the text you have selected as the anchor. You can choose when this goes out as a PDF, whether it exports as a bookmark or not. That would probably make sense. Data merge is dimmed out because this document is not a data merged document, but that should indicate to you that the anchor can come from data merge. That is beyond the scope of what we're doing today. We're just making individual anchors. So we now have a destination. We would then go on to page 2. And if you've ever done this in PowerPoint or Keynote or anything else pretty much, this is what you will have done. You will have sat there and done this 365 or 366 times. Right, well, let's go in there. Friday the 2nd. Okay. and the 3rd. And this is what you're doing. You would go through and you would do that. Right, I need to point out to you here what on earth is going on. Because we've got Friday, Saturday, Thursday. Just a minute, shouldn't Thursday be before Friday? It should. This panel is alphabetical. I have no idea how that makes sense either, but it's alphabetical. So you will find, if you were to go to the 9th, where's the 9th? 7th, 8th, 9th. All right, and we make that an anchor, that it will do it alphabetically. So in here, it would be the 2nd, the 9th, the 16th, and so forth. That's just the way it works. It doesn't actually matter as much as you would imagine. But let's go down to the 31st, so the last day of January, and select that and add another anchor. So at this point, all you're doing is navigating to, double-clicking to select the whole text, and adding an anchor and clicking OK. You just have to do that 31 times. Now, the next step is to make sure that from the mini calendar, let's get that out of the way, from the mini calendar, that you have a link to that specific day. Right, so do we want to do that 31 times? No, because it would be once per page and once per day. So let's do some maths in Raycast. 31 days times 31 links. I don't want to do that 961 times either. So let's not do that. Right, remember, there's nothing on these pages. Other than the dates, everything else came from the master page. So let's navigate to the master page. The only thing missing is the day. That doesn't matter. It's this down here that we need to think about. We need to supercharge this, so it's going to go to the anchors. So the 31st, I've definitely done the 31st. Make sure you've got it selected. You switch from the anchors to the hyperlinks. You have none at the moment. You click to add, and you choose the type from in here. So what we need this to be is an anchor. We're going to link to an anchor in the document. This next drop-down will give us a list of anchors in the document in alphabetical order. I know it's annoying. It would work if you had the days at the end, which is even more annoying. Right, but this is the 31st, so you just find the 31st in the list. You choose that, and you are good to go. The character style it's referring to is a text style, which means by default it will be blue. And you click OK, and that lights up. Right, I think we did create the 1st, didn't we? So select the 1st and click plus, not Friday. There's Thursday, the 1st, and OK. We did have Friday the 2nd, though, so we'll add 1 to that. And I think we had Friday the 9th as well. So you just add a hyperlink and select it. So we definitely had the 30th. Have a look what we've got. And we had the 3rd as well. So I might as well do that while we're at it. Right, so you're just choosing where it's going to. I'm not going to make you sit through while I do all of them. But you would only have to do 31 because it's on the master. Right, having done that on the master, let's close the master pages, go back to the standard pages, and check that on the standard pages, all of these are linked, and they are. And you've got a couple of options at this point. I'm going to move the hyperlinks out of the way, make sure we can see the whole page so we can see the date. And down here, if I right click, so I'm selecting this, and if I click on it, I can go to the hyperlink target. So if I do that, it should take me to the 31st. If I then select the 9th in here and do the same, and go to hyperlink target, it should take me to the 9th, and it does. So it looks like everything's wired up correctly. So let's do an export. Now, this is where it could go hideously wrong. There are so many options for PDF export, and you may think, oh, well, print's the way forward. Not if you want these to be clickable, it's not. So make sure that you have here digital high quality set or digital small size. I personally would go for high quality, and I would use a different application to compress it. And it's worth compressing because these file sizes are hideously huge. But with that selected, I need to send all the spreads to this PDF. And what selecting digital enables me to do in here, as I scroll down, is include the hyperlinks and include the bookmarks. If you choose press ready or print or flatten, you will lose the ability to do that. So make sure it's set to a digital output. Export that, and we'll send that to the root of that folder. And what I'm then going to do with it is go and find it and open it up in my PDF editor. There we go, which is preview. Right, so there's the first. Notice these are highlighted, and notice as I hover over them, I get a hand. And when I click on that, it takes me to the 31st, that will take me back to the 3rd, that will take me to the 9th. So all of the links are working. All you need to do is learn the basics of what anchors are and how they work, hyperlinks, what they are and how they work, and then you are ready to data merge it, and that will save you so much time. But there's no point diving straight to a data merge because it's complicated and you would be using terms like anchors and hyperlinks and not even know what they are. Now, you still need, whether you're data merging or not, you still need to understand what anchors and hyperlinks are, because you may choose, let's say the 1st of December, to hyperlink to a gift guide or something that's in the planner. And that would have to be done manually rather than data merge because it's only one link. So understanding anchors and hyperlinks is absolutely critical. Right, let's get rid of that and let's head back into here. That one is also available as a PDF with a couple of links in, I think. I'm not sure if I put the links in. Maybe I didn't, but it's there to play with. So what did we look at? We looked at options for using digital planner pages and some standard planner pages. We looked at various note types. There were lined notes. There was Cornell notes. We looked at dot grids. We looked at creating a grid. Then there was various calendar pages. We did our Polaroid page for memories, and we created links between the pages. And now it's time for some free assets for you. So this is where you'll find them. There are in there quite a few. I've also included the calendars, which are PNGs that you can use in your planner pages. So they're the same as last week, but you've also got in there the lined pages. You've got the Cornell page. You have the 12 months planner page. You have the cute little dogs. Oh, aren't they cute? And the last one, which had the hyperlinks, the anchors and hyperlinks. Put these on your iPad, have a play with them. It should indicate to you how deep you need the lines for your handwriting. Or if you are selling these, then maybe provide different options. And that is where you will find them. So let's move on before we get to Q&A. So all of these sessions that I've done for Affinity version 3 are available on demand on YouTube. I've created a playlist called Affinity with Elaine. You will find that playlist at that URL. So there's QR code there. I've put all of them up. So I think there's 5 and they'll be heading into 6 shortly. But I did and everything you need to know. So if you've never used Affinity before, that's probably the one to start with. Even if you have used version 1 or version 2, it's probably worth starting with that one because I explain what they've done and to some degree why they've done it. Then there was creating your first layout. And then I got so many requests for data merge that I did do data merge. It wasn't a calendar data merge, but it was how data merge works, which I personally would have left a bit, but apparently people wanted it. But then I did calendars last week, and that one's had more views than the data merge. So there you go. Don't ever make predictions. And obviously today's will be there as well. If you could help me out, as I hope I have helped you out, that would be great. So please put a like on the video. It makes a big difference to YouTube and how their algorithm recommends it to people. You could also subscribe to the channel. There is a link down there for that. And the biggest thing you could do, which you can't do yet, I know it's annoying, But you can't leave a comment while we're live. But if you're watching on catch up, or you're watching live and you could go back after we finished, you can only do this after the live stream, but it only needs to say thanks. You don't need to write your will, seriously. It does make a huge difference to YouTube how many comments a video gets. So comments are more than welcome, and thank you to everybody who has done that over the last few weeks. Right, what are we doing next time? This is another one that's been requested. I have done it before, but it was a long time ago, and it was quite popular. So obviously this is something that you could be doing, particularly given the fact it's coming up to Christmas. So next week, we are designing a photo book in Affinity by Canva. So that will include things like managing photos, layouts, templates, probably global colours, because you always need a global colour. If you've got any questions about that you would like me to cover, then let me know before we start, and I'll be able to include it. Right, thank you very much for being with us. If you want to hook up with me, those are the socials. I'm first to admit, not great on Facebook, but I am quite happy on Blue Sky. It's like Twitter used to be. And of course, there is YouTube. You will also find my blog, which, after lots of bad words yesterday, I've finally managed to update. Very proud of myself there. I'm working with a beta version of my theme. It's my own fault. But all of the tutorials and stuff from previous videos, you will find those on my blog at elainegiles.co.uk. If you would like to keep up with what is coming up and what sessions are available, then go to elainegiles.com/VIP and sign up for my newsletter. So I'm assuming at this point we have got questions. Right, Mike's informing me we've got lots of questions. So let's take some questions while I leave that on the screen so you can go and get signed up.
Right, okay, let's go back to the beginning. Doula95, any way to make hyperlinks faster?
Yes, data merge. If you are doing calendars, then data merge is your friend. If it's something like an email address in a digital directory, you could also data merge that. The things you can't really data merge easily are the odd items. Now, having said that, if you have information online, let's say it's to do with holidays. So you're linking to Wikipedia to explain to people who aren't in the US what Thanksgiving is and what Black Friday is and what Memorial Day is. Then those are things that you could data merge. The things that you can't data merge are just the odd items. But the principles of anchors and hyperlinks are identical. It's just that data merging is then the way to do it. I deliberately did not include that because a lot of people don't understand anchors and hyperlinks yet. But if that is something that is useful to you, then let me know and we can schedule it.
Okay, next question, also from Doula95. How to make integration with Google or Apple Calendar? Second one appears to be far more difficult.
Right. If by integration you mean that you tap on a day and it takes you out to Google Calendar, you would be able to do that. You should be able to do it for iCloud. But obviously, you've got to get the URLs from somewhere, and then you'd need to data merge those in. So it's a lovely idea, but a bit trickier. One option might be to include a QR code. Now, I know you're thinking a QR code is visual. It is, but you could add a clickable hyperlink to the QR code and do it that way. There's lots of different options, but none of them are going to be as automated as you would like them to be, because Google make changes a lot of the time, and Apple have still, we did this on the podcast, didn't we? Was it 12 years? Apple have still got problems with their calendar. And what I mean by problems is there's calendar spam. And what happens is somebody sends to your email a calendar appointment and it automatically gets put on your calendar and it's spam. And they've still not fixed it. It's been years and years and they've still not fixed it. So in terms of them thinking it's a good idea to allow you that kind of integration with the calendar, I think they'd run away screaming. So that could be why the Apple one is proving more tricky. It isn't something that I think I would bother with, just because I can imagine that I'd do it and it would take me 35 hours to sort it out and then they'd break it. Which pretty much describes my blog experience this weekend, doesn't it? Yeah, pretty much. So I don't think you're going to find that as integrated as you would like just yet.
Elaine, have you heard anything about iPad and Affinity?
They definitely implied at the launch event it would not be this side Christmas. I have said that Canva for the last 4 years, have had 2 keynotes a year. One, October, November time. So this one was the 30th of October. And the other in the spring. My money would be on a spring release if it's available. If it's not quite ready, they might go for a beta approach. But I don't think we're going to be seeing it as soon as people would like. And obviously, if you are a heavy iPad user, you really can't be using version 3 on the desktop because you can't access your content on the iPad. And I know it's frustrating and it's annoying, but it's just the way it is at the moment.
Okay, next one. Jammy, can we see some examples of used Elaine Planner pages with her scribes and the like on it?
You could do. I haven't got that ready for today, but Michael, make a note of it. There you go.
Right, okay. Next one. Filament design. I'm trying to move from InDesign and Adobe as a whole. So far it's been pretty smooth, especially with your wisdom and accent. What I'm trying to figure out is nested styles and grep. Do you have any thoughts?
Grep is available in Affinity, but not globally and not in the way it is in InDesign. So your nested styles, no chance. Grep styles, no chance. The style system in InDesign is way more powerful. Now, I don't know what priority Affinity or now Canva is putting on that. I think originally Serif Affinity probably would have added it, but I'm not sure that Canva think that it's that important. So that is just not available right now. There's a few things you can do to work around it, but you're pretty much relying on the find and replace dialog. And no, grep styles is one of the things that is missing, unfortunately. So no, it doesn't do that. I will say the data merge feature is way more forgiving than it is in InDesign. In terms of, in InDesign, I always had to export my data to hook up to it. And then if I needed to make any changes to the data, I had to go and do that separately. Whereas in Publisher, well, no, it's Affinity, I can hook up directly to the data. But no, the 2 features you've mentioned are the 2 things that really are seriously missing, unfortunately.
Okay, there's lots of nice comments and questions of people saying thank you.
I'm glad you enjoyed it, found it useful.
Okay, next one is from Ashira. Hopefully I've said that correctly. Is there a way to make a hex grid?
A hex grid. I think you can. I've never actually done it. There are some options in there to create isometric grids. I'm not sure in terms of a hex grid. You can definitely make grids of different shapes. I'm not sure if a hex grid is one of them, but I know isometric is, so you should be able to. But I've not actually done that myself. Put that down for me to have a look at.
Okay, I'll do that in a second. Simon Newt, never used any apps for digital planners. Do you have a video on using OneNote with the PDF planner pages?
No, I haven't. The trick with OneNote is, I think, to separate the pages out. From memory. There are videos out there that demonstrate that. It's not as easy as you think it should be, but it does enable you to on a page-by-page basis, have access to the pages. But it's a lot more manual than it would be with another app. The app I used to recommend was ColorNote because it was free. But when I checked, that there was in-app purchases. So now I'm not sure how much of ColorNote is free. I used to use GoodNotes and Notability. I used Notability when GoodNotes did an update and broke it on the Mac. Isn't this typical? That happens a lot. But then Notability went subscription and they cut you off at the knees with what you'd already paid for. It was one of these updates where they updated the app and the fact that you'd paid for it, and now you've got the free version and you need to pay again. And it caused such a stink. I exported everything as PDF and then went back to GoodNotes. Now, GoodNotes had some They brought out their last version and you needed some kind of, I think I went for a lifetime deal. It's not that expensive, so it really depends whether you're that integrated with OneNote that it's worth your time to take the extra time to make it work with OneNote, or whether it would actually work out faster and cheaper to just get one of the apps where you can just open it and use it. It's nowhere near as integrated in OneNote, but it can be done. But no, I'm afraid I don't have a video on it.
Okay, right. From Patricia, question before I leave. I'll be a published children's book author next year, and will format a 32 to 48 page illustrated book with Affinity to load to Ingram Spark. Do you have a video for that?
No, I don't. Michael, make a note of it. I'll have a look at it, but no, I don't already know.
It's
next week's is going to include, it's designing a photo book. So when you say photo book, people think of just photos. But I made a photo book for my mother. She went on holiday with my dad, and it was one of their last holidays. And it was the Fylde Coast, which is the west coast of England. And there were so many little stories of the places that they'd been to. So although it was a photo book highlighting her photos, there was a lot of text in it as well. So it could just be an illustrated book. So I will include next week adding text to it, but the Ingram Spark bit of it, Michael, make a note and I'll have a look at it.
Yeah, made a note of that one.
But I don't have a video on it right now.
Okay, I'm just trying to keep up with all these. Right, this may be a dumb question, but why do you design in Pages versus Master Pages? We don't do dumb questions, Tish, by the way.
Why do I say that again?
This may be a dumb question, but why do you design in Pages versus Master Pages?
I would design in a master page like you saw me do with the last one with the rings in it, if it was appropriate to. If I'm demonstrating, then it doesn't really matter where I do it. Any repeating elements I would put on a master page. But obviously, if I'm just demonstrating, doing a calendar or a table, then I wouldn't bother putting it in a master page. Purely because if you understand master pages, you don't need to see me do it in a master page. And some people have no idea what a master page is and they just want a table, or they just want some line note paper. And if I start banging on about doing it correctly, which would be, start with the right size and then make a global colour and then make some symbols, I'd have lost them well before we got to the stage where we were actually putting lines on a page. So take the principle of it. If it's a repeating element, put it on a master page. If not, doesn't matter.
Right, can you export that memories as a Canva template and keep the photo placeholder?
That's an interesting one. It's my understanding you can't actually do that yet. I think ultimately that's where they're heading, because their idea is that their professional users will use Affinity and they will make like branding kits and stuff, and then they will upload it to Canva, and all of the social media managers and the users of it will use Canva, and that is how come they're making it free. The integration at the moment is shocking. And when I say shocking, I took some stuff that I'd done and I uploaded it to Canva. Now, bearing in mind, you can, in your Canva account, install custom fonts. What I assumed would happen is that any custom fonts I used would automatically be put in my Canva account. No. So when I exported all of these pages and I got to Canva, they'd replaced it with Times New Roman and all of my designs were broken. And I thought, you've got to be kidding me. So in terms of where they're heading, I think that's where they'll go. Are they there yet? No, not by a royal mile, they're not. So I would say no at the moment. You may be able to copy and paste it. You may be able to export it as SVG and fiddle with it. I don't think there's a direct route. But Michael put it down on the list and I'll give it a try and let you know.
Okay. Elaine quickly mentioned adding a global colour to the swatches. How do you do that?
Okay, I will show you that. So let's come out of here. Right. Initially, when you have a file, so file new, you do not have global colours. What you have are all of your swatches available. There are 3 types of swatches in here by default. Your Pantone, your system colours, if you are on a Mac, they are not there on Windows, and your application palettes. Your application palettes are only available to Affinity. So they are locked inside Affinity. Now, you've got 2 ways of creating a document palette. You can either go and say, add a document palette, which will create a blank document palette, and then you can add colours to it. Or you can say, add a global colour, and that will create the document palette for you. So I'm going to say add a global colour. I then decide what my global colour will be. We're very brown related today, aren't we? I like blue, so let's make it blue. When you're naming a global colour, name what it is rather than what it looks like. When people started designing HTML back in the early 90s, they started calling things, red text, and then the client said, I want it blue. And they literally couldn't go through the code and change the word red text to blue text. They just changed the definition of it. But years later, people would come back and say, why is that text now green? So don't call it blue. Call that what it is. So let's say we wanted that to be lines. And okay, and that's done 2 things. It has created a document palette, which always appears at the top. Doesn't have to be called document, but by default, if you don't give it another name, it will be called document. And then within there, you have the actual colour. So if you want to rename this, I had one, didn't I? That was let me have a look which one that was. I think it was that one. Right, in here, I had a document palette called Schooner Blue. 22 Schooner Blue. And that is a document palette. So it doesn't have to be called document. But it's called document by default. So in here, mine is called document. If you want to rename that, you click the drop down and you have an option to rename the palette. So it's document. Let's say, well, actually, that's a terrible name, isn't it? Let's say lined notes. And now I've got a palette called lined notes. So I would have palettes in here called Affinity Branding, Mac Bytes. They are describing what the colours are rather than saying these are blues or these are this. Now, obviously, the Schooner Blue need to be blue. So it is called Schooner Blue. But that is how you create it. And you can then edit the fill in here. So you could change the colour of it, make it much deeper. And you can also, on the right click, rename the global colour. So you may decide to call that like a primary colour. I would have primary, secondary. I've got lots of different things going on there. Don't have a file handy to show you, but I have primary, secondary, and then I'll have light primary, light secondary, and stuff like that. I don't name it. I don't give it a hex code, because sometimes if you have a shape like that and you say, make me a global colour from there, which I think we can add from here. Can I add it from the shape? Create a palette from that, create a document. No, I can import it. I think if I do that, yeah, it adds it in from the shape and it calls it global colour too, which means I would have to go in and then rename it, but you can obviously do that. So those are how you create global colours.
Okay. Tish said, could you do the date in a different way so you didn't have the day in there, but rather have it somewhere else?
You could do. If that's coming from a data merge, you can have it however you want it. I just did that for the quickest, that those days were one text box that went in there. To be honest, that data was data merged. What I didn't data merge, because obviously I've got 31 days in there, I data merged that to create it, but I did not data merge the creation of the anchors and the hyperlinks, because what would the point of that have been? If I'd have done that, I wouldn't have been able to say this is how you do an anchor and a hyperlink manually. I didn't do, I could have done the anchors and left the hyperlinks, but I didn't. So the good news is when you're data merging that, you can have it in any format you like. It doesn't matter. You could even have a hidden shape that you call something like, 1-1. If you know, it'd have to be the other way, wouldn't it? I think if you're going to do this, make sure that it's bulletproof, which would be you could have a hidden shape, the layer name of which is 2026-0101, 2026-0102. And that way, when you create your anchors, they would be in alphabetical order and still work. So you could do anything you like from data merge. You can do anything you like manually. It's just going to take you a little bit longer. But think ahead to what it is. Where do you want to be when you've got everything in there, and what do you want to do with it? I just decided, if I'm doing a demonstration, I'm showing people hidden shapes, they're at a total loss as to what I'm doing. Why is there a hidden shape? Why couldn't you just link to the date? So I kept it straightforward. We linked to the date, and I put in the day and the date so I could show you that it sorted it alphabetically, which infuriates me. I had a problem with Publisher version 2 where there was part of it broken, and I needed to use the anchors panel to fix it. And the anchors panel was alphabetical, and it drove me mad. But luckily, they have actually fixed that problem now.
All right, next one. This is from Solmat Solhat. Could you please comment on the layers panel hierarchy? I notice you keep objects in the same layer. Pros and cons of using different layers, e.g. background, text, images, etc. Best practice.
Really depends on you. When I'm doing it for real, I tend to use groups. The difference between groups and layers, if I just quickly show you. Right, let's say we've got multiple shapes here, or text, or whatever, so we'll have a couple of these. And we could probably do with a better colour than that, couldn't we? Let's make them primary. Right, let's say we've got objects like this. Depending on what it is, I would group together things that made sense to group together. So if you remember earlier on, I did a shape. And I made a cross. And I said I would probably Boolean operate those. So imagine that was a shape that I was using multiple times. Let's say it's a branding symbol, right? At the moment, it is 2 separate layers in here because it's 2 separate elements. Right, I've got lots of options when it comes to working with that. If that is a logo, if that is somebody's logo, one option would be to group it. So Command and G, and it creates a group. These 2 things are still in here, but they're in a group. Right, let's take the same shapes, and we will copy those, and we will put them outside of the group, like that. Right, let's lose these 2 and put them back later. Right, so this looks the same, but it is not going to behave the same. So we've got 3 items on there, although it looks like 4. The group means click to select it and move it. And it moves as a group, the 2 elements together. These do not, because they're not in a group. They are independent elements. I could take these 2. We could create a layer, and I could take these 2 shapes and put them in that layer. To some degree, these behave the same. So we could toggle on and off that group, the visibility of it. We could toggle on and off the layer. So at that point, they look the same, don't they? I could click on the layer and I could move it. I could click on the group and move it. They look the same. But inside the layers, as opposed to inside the groups, I mean, yes, if I click this, that would move one. But in here, if I click like that and move, it selects the individual items. Whereas if I click on there and move, so the big difference between layers and groups is that the elements in a layer move independently and the elements in a group move together. Even that is not as far as we can go. We can go a lot further than that with what we can do. So irrespective of whether they're in a layer or a group or anything else either, another option that you have, so we've got these 2 shapes, they're totally independent. One thing you could do, and I'm going to make a copy of them. Right, one thing you could do is, if that is a logo, you could Boolean operate them. So a Boolean operation is where you take those 2 elements, and that has now become one element. It's not a group, it's not a layer, but it moves independently. The 2 elements are now one element. You can no longer edit that now. You could undo, but down the line, when you've done 3 days' work on this, you can't undo that. You can't unbake the cake on that one. But these two elements down here, if when you use a Boolean operation up here, you hold the Option key down, which I'm assuming is Alt on PC.
Yeah.
Thank you, Mike. Right, if you do that, when you click the button, you end up with a compound shape. So it is, for all intents and purposes, a Boolean operation, but it retains its editability inside of it. So you have lots of different ways that you can work in the layers. We actually did a layers masterclass, didn't we, on Friday, in our Backbites After Hours season pass. So there's probably a session that I could do just on layers and all of the things you can do. But yes, the order that you have them in here, whether you group them, whether you use layers, really depends on your workflow. I like to group things more than I like using layers, but if you're moving from Illustrator, you may be more comfortable with layers. Choice is completely up to you. Obviously, you may at times find yourself doing something that is a longer way to do something than another option, but if you're more familiar with that, there's nothing wrong with that. In terms of the order of these in here, it works like acetate sheets. If something is at the top, so let's change some colours here. We could do that much darker. Right. The layers work. The higher up the stacking order they are, the more you see them. So if I put that on top of that, the green one is at the top. If I move it behind it, it goes down the stacking order. So that is the same as any other application that works like that. What you'll find with some of mine, let me see what I can find. There are things that I have. I don't particularly organise everything, but let me go and find a document that I did last week, which was not the chat. Let's have a look at the show summary from last week. Right, this is a PDF. That's what it looks like in here. So you can see there's lots of elements in there. Now, what does that look like in Affinity? I don't particularly in here. Let's have a look. This one has got 2 columns, and all that is an image. If we look at this, you can see I've got another, it says 2 columns. What it means is a 2-column image. What I mean by that is, if I switch to MacBytes, I have a 1-column image and a 2-column image. The text in here is coming from the master page. So all of the elements that are on here are pretty much graphics. It tends to be that the ones at the top of the page are lower down the stacking order. That's just the way that I work with it. So you can see I've got a 1-column and a 1-column and a 2-column. I don't really take that much time. I do much more work with the layers panel when I'm working with vector graphics. So I can go back and edit it in some kind of way. But other than that, the way that I've designed this is that the text comes off the master page and everything else is just the images. So hopefully that gives you some kind of idea. I do take the time when I'm creating things like the master page, so I can show you the master page. Right, we've got a branding page, we have a page, and we have page with text. So the page just has page numbers at the bottom, and the page with text has a text frame there that I use, and it's taking up 2/3 of the page. Those are the master pages, and that is what the finished document looks like, including the cover page, which has got the title, the show number, and the branding. Notice that I do take the time and put the names in. Then we've got the table of contents, and then the actual content itself, like that. So hopefully that gives you some kind of idea.
Okay, from Lydia, what app do you recommend to use to compress PDF files?
PDF Optim, which I should be able to show you.
And it's cross-platform, apparently.
It's cross-platform. It's Windows, it's Mac, it's also iOS. So if
I'll just put the name of it in the chat.
I do that, the web page is not good, I'll be honest. I
couldn't even find the web page.
Oh, you should be able to find the web page. Right, let's do that and bring this across.
No, I can just find the App Store and the Microsoft Store.
Well, there you go, Mike.
Oh, there it is.
1994 called and asked for its web page back.
Rootwise, that's it.
Rootwise Technologies. And as you can see, Mac App Store, Windows Store, iOS Store, that is exceptional. It is exceptional. I have demonstrated it before. What I'll do is I will quickly show you that actually working. So let's lose that. And I will put this on here. So this is what my folder structure looks like. Annie's going to like this. She likes being organised. This is MacBytes from last week. So in here I have a show summary. This is my Affinity file, which is 156 meg. This is what comes out of Affinity. So when I do that high quality, right, I call this original. So my export from my 156 is 30 meg. I can't expect users to download 30 meg, not on a phone. So I compress it and I got 1.8 meg. And the only compression, so if I show you that, that's what it looks like. That's the compressed one. That is the uncompressed one. Not that different. Certainly not 15 times the size different. So what I'll do is I will open this, which is the original, in PDF Optim. And that will show you what it looks like. On the left-hand side, you have the original file, 30 meg. On the right, you have the compressed one, which is 1.8, which is compressed by 93.9%. It is set to auto-compress to medium, and that's the one I stick with. You can in here choose extreme compression, low compression. You can even go into manual and start fiddling around with all of the options. But I found auto medium works great. What you're then looking at is, at the top, you have a tray of files. You can compress in bulk. I've only got one file open, which is what the thumbnail is. The bottom half of that, I have the original on the left, I have the compressed version on the right. And I can scroll and see what the compressed version would look like. So if we go down to some with pickies, here we go. That was what we did on the Sunday. You can see there is not much difference between them. You can zoom in on this and actually see the difference. And there is zero difference when it comes to the text because that is vector. When you look at the images, you can see actually the compressed one, there is a difference. But that's zoomed into 675%. So if you wanted to look at that one-on-one, there is no difference. No one's going to notice. So at that point, when I've done a quick check on it, I then hit export and it will have compressed it. And it will have overwritten the other one, which is this one. And you can now see that that is 1.8 meg. So I was not lying. That is what it did with it. So what I would need to do now is go and re-export it to the original. But yeah, that's how I compress it. And it is worth doing. So that is called PDF Optim from Rootrise. I know the website not good, but the application is absolutely brilliant. Okay.
SFN's just said, I don't remember you mentioning that before. Didn't you use something else?
No, that's the one I've always used.
I used to use, well, I still do use PDF Expert, but that's gone subscription, hasn't it?
PDF Expert is a great PDF editor. I did not appreciate the subscription debacle that I had to go through. So I stopped using it. But while it is a general PDF editor and reader, it is not optimized for optimizing PDFs. I mean, it can be done, but PDF Optim, that is all it does. That is all it does. And it's definitely worth trying if you're going to do that.
Okay, Joho says, what app do you use to make non-editable PDFs, only with a password, editable, or ability to copy text?
Right, hang on a minute. You want to make a locked PDF, is that what you're saying?
No, I think, what app do you use to make non-editable PDFs editable? So does he mean you've got a locked PDF and you want to unlock it?
Oh, that's naughty. They're usually locked for a reason, but yes, you can do that. Can't remember the name of the app. I've not used it in years. It was PDF something.
PDF, not Pen.
No, it wasn't PDF
Pro.
Pen.
PDF Pro?
No, it's got. Is it Unlock in the name? PDF Lock or something like that. No, I can't remember the name, but Michael, make a note and I'll find out.
Okay. And the last question, less more come in. Is it possible to see or buy any of Elaine's complete planners?
Not at the moment, but I'm working on it. There you go. Who was that one?
That was from Margaret.
Okay. I will work on that and let you know.
And that's it.
Right. So have we got any more questions, or is that it? But yeah, that was the only one that I used to compress PDFs. So while you could use Preview would let you do it a bit, but it's not worth the effort. That one lets you actually physically see the difference. So if you want like the images to be amazing, you can do that and still compress it slightly. So the other ones tend to be more global. You could tweak just the images and not the text, or just the text and not the images. The others are just make this smaller and that's it, and you don't really know what they're doing. It's always worked well for me. I use that every single week on the church newsletter. The parish secretary puts images in, and these images, I mean, if you were at Map Bites After Hours, you'll know these images were not good. They were compressed the life out of them to start with. But unfortunately, when she puts it into Microsoft Publisher, you know, it could be 10 or 20 meg, and people are trying to read this newsletter on their phone. So I would compress it. The images couldn't look any worse anyway, some of them. I would compress it anyway. The text is absolutely pin sharp. So it's only some of these images. If the images are that bad and I can find something that would let me edit it, then I will even do that. And that way I can recompress it. So she's probably sending something through that's about 20 meg. And I send something back that's about 1 to 1.5, something like that. But I need to be able to compress, not globally, because then I'm going to lose the quality on the text and the images are bad enough to start with. So I like the granularity that you get with PDF Optim. I've not used anything else for at least 3 or 4 years. So it must have been that one if I demoed it. Okay, so do we get any more questions in or not?
No, just people saying thank you.
Right, a locked PDF. A lot of manuals for devices come with other languages. You can't make annotations or mark important stuff. There is something for that, and I wish I could remember.
I think Joe has on Windows, though.
Oh, in that case, no.
I think.
There was one for Windows, but I haven't used Windows in 19 years, so please excuse me if I forgot the name of it. But we will find out, won't we, Mike? There definitely was one on Windows, because we used it. When we moved to the Mac, the one on a Mac is really straightforward. It does 2 things. You drag and drop a PDF file onto this little tiny interface, and if it's locked, it will unlock it, and if it's unlocked, it will lock it, and that's it. That's all this app does. It's quite old now, but I think it still works. All I need to do is remember what it's called, but the one on Windows, I literally cannot remember. Okay, right, in that case, we'll head off. So thank you for all your lovely comments. People will be moaning next, won't they, you know, Mike, over how long the video is. 2.5 hours on that. Yes, but just think of all that you've learnt. So if you've stuck with us till the bitter end, congratulations, well done. There should be a prize for that, shouldn't there? That's what I'll do. I'll put a little icon up at the end. And you know how people say, if you made it to this point, put the icon in the chat. That's what I'll do. Should we choose an icon quickly? Let's pick one. No, not the smiling pile of poo. Should we choose one?
Clock.
No, well, we could do the clock. Yeah, put a clock in the chat if you made it this far. That way you don't even have to say anything. So when I said you could just say thanks, if you go back after we finished and you're just going to put something in the chat, put a clock in it and I'll know that you made it this far. Oh, I'm impressed with that. I'm impressed with myself for coming up with that idea.
Yeah, that's the chat when we've finished the comments, not the chat now.
Yes, that's the chat when we've finished, because you're going to go back, aren't you? And you're going to put a like on it and you're going to leave a message. That would be great. Right, okay then. We will be back next week, 3 o'clock, and it will be the 12th of December. We'll have the tree up by then, won't we?
Yeah.
She said, hopefully. And we will be doing photo books. Now, I did see something fly past about photo books, and somebody saying it was their granddad's birthday in January. So get your photos ready this week and hopefully be able to start on a run next week when we've done that.
If you put in a clock in the chat, can you wait till we finish the live stream and then go back and put it as a comment? Yeah,
put it as a comment, and that way Google and YouTube will be really happy with it. But yes, thank you. If you are putting one in, thank you for bearing with us. It's appreciated, honestly. But for the moment, I'm going to say goodbye from me.
And goodbye from me.
And we will both see you next time. Stay safe, guys.